Evolution has a simple rule. Weakness disappears, useless traits go extinct. So why are humans still crying after millions of years? Because according to evolution, tears should never have existed. And yet, they may be one of the greatest reasons our species survived. At first, that sounds impossible. After all, crying makes very little sense. It blurs your vision. It makes your breathing irregular. It tells everyone around you exactly when you're at your weakest. If a predator is nearby, those are terrible survival traits. Nature usually rewards the opposite: sharper eyesight, faster reflexes, better camouflage, not tears. And yet, every culture on Earth cries. Every child, every parent, every civilization that has ever existed. Which raises a strange question. If crying is such a bad survival strategy, why didn't evolution get rid of it? The obvious answer is emotion. People cry because they're sad. Simple. Except, that isn't true. People cry when they get married, when they finally achieve a lifelong dream, when a missing loved one walks through the front door. Some people cry while laughing so hard they can't breathe. Others cry while listening to music, or standing in front of a beautiful landscape. The same tears appear during grief, joy, relief, fear, love, and awe. One behavior. Completely different emotions. That shouldn't happen. Then scientists notice something even stranger. Humans don't produce just one kind of tear. We produce three. The first protects your eyes every second you're awake. Without it, your eyes would slowly dry out. The second appears when smoke fills the air, or when you cut an onion. Its only job is defense. Wash away whatever doesn't belong. Almost every mammal produces those. But humans have something else. A third kind. Emotional tears. Tears that appear for no physical reason at all. No dust, no injury, no smoke. Just emotion. As far as researchers know, humans are the only species that consistently sheds emotional tears. Think about that. Whales don't, lions don't, wolves don't. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, show powerful emotions, but they don't appear to shed emotional tears the way we do. Out of millions of species on Earth, this strange behavior seems to belong almost entirely to us, which makes the mystery even bigger, because evolution almost never creates something this expensive without getting something in return. So, what exactly are tears doing? For decades, scientists searched for the answer inside the eye. They may have been looking in the wrong place, because the real story of crying doesn't begin with tears. It begins with one of the weakest creatures evolution has ever produced. A human baby. Compared to almost every other mammal, a human newborn is astonishingly helpless. A young giraffe can stand within an hour. Many newborn mammals are walking on the very day they're born. Human babies can't even hold up their own heads. They can't run. They can't hide. They can't feed themselves. For years, they survive only because someone else chooses to keep them alive. From an evolutionary perspective, that's an enormous risk, which raises another question. How did the most helpless baby on Earth become part of the most successful species that ever lived? A human baby has one enormous problem. It can't tell anyone what's wrong. Not with words, not with gestures, not even by pointing. For hundreds of thousands of years, a newborn had only one survival tool. It cried. At first, that sounds obvious. Of course babies cry. But think about what that really means. A tiny sound had the power to interrupt sleep, stop a conversation, or make an entire group pay attention. Few signals in nature are that effective, and the human brain evolved to respond almost instantly. Researchers have found that a baby's cry activates areas of the adult brain linked to attention, emotion, and preparation for action, often within fractions of a second. Before you even decide to move, your brain is already reacting. It's almost impossible to ignore. Which may explain another strange fact. Human babies cry far more than the young of most mammals. Not because they're weaker, because they depend on cooperation more than any other species on Earth. But here's where the story becomes even stranger. Newborn babies don't actually shed visible tears. For the first few weeks of life, they cry. Without tears, their lungs work, their voice works, but the tear glands haven't fully matured. In other words, the cry came first, the tears came later, which raises an unexpected question. If the sound already brought help, why did evolution add tears? Scientists still don't fully agree, but one idea has become increasingly difficult to ignore. Maybe tears were never meant for the person crying. Maybe they evolved for everyone else. Think about the last time you saw someone cry. Before they spoke, before they explained anything, you already knew something was wrong. Tears communicate instantly, across different languages, different cultures, different countries, without saying a single word. And experiments suggest they change the way other people behave. When volunteers are shown the same face with tears digitally removed, they consistently judge that person as needing less help than when the tears are visible. Nothing else changes. Same face, same expression, same person. Just one tiny detail, the tears. And suddenly, our brains respond differently. One drop of water can change another person's behavior. That's extraordinary, because evolution rarely rewards traits that only benefit the individual. It strongly favors traits that help families, groups, and entire communities survive. Humans didn't become the dominant species because every individual was strong. We became successful because we helped one another survive. An injured hunter could recover because others shared food. A sick child could live because someone stayed behind to care for them. An elderly member of the group could pass on knowledge long after they stopped hunting. That kind of cooperation is incredibly rare in the animal kingdom, and cooperation depends on something surprisingly fragile. Knowing when someone needs help. Perhaps tears became one of evolution's clearest signals. Not saying, "I'm weak," but saying, "Don't leave me alone." For most of human history, that simple message may have meant the difference between life and death. But it doesn't explain one of the biggest mysteries of all. Because babies cry to survive, that makes sense. Adults don't need to. So why do grown humans still cry? Why do people cry after winning Olympic gold? Why do soldiers cry when they return home? Why do parents cry while watching their children sleep? Why do some people cry while hearing a piece of music, or standing beneath the northern lights, or watching the birth of their first child? None of those moments are about danger. None of them require help. Yet the same tears appear, which suggests something remarkable. Crying isn't simply a response to suffering. It's a response to significance. The moments that change our lives often leave us speechless. And when words fail, our biology takes over. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger that idea became. Because emotional tears aren't just ordinary tears. They're chemically different. The tears that constantly protect your eyes are designed to keep your vision clear. The tears produced while cutting an onion exist for another reason entirely. They're emergency cleaners. Their job is to flush irritating chemicals away from the eye. But emotional tears are something else. Researchers have found they contain different concentrations of proteins, hormones, and other molecules associated with emotional states. Exactly why remains one of the biggest unanswered questions in human biology. Some scientists have suggested that emotional crying may help regulate stress. Others believe that effect is far too small to explain why tears evolved in the first place. The truth is, we still don't know. Think about how remarkable that really is. Humanity has mapped its own genome, built machines that landed on Mars, sent spacecraft beyond the edge of our solar system, photographed black holes billions of light years away, and yet, we still can't fully explain why a human being cries. Perhaps we've been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe the mystery isn't, why do we cry? Maybe it's, why do tears change everyone around us? Imagine two photographs, the same person, the same expression, the same lighting. The only difference, one face has tears, the other doesn't. When researchers showed these photographs to volunteers, the results were surprisingly consistent. The face with tears was judged as more sincere, more vulnerable, more deserving of help. Nothing else had changed. Not the expression, not the person, just a few drops of water. And somehow, our brains responded completely differently. From an evolutionary perspective, that's extraordinary, because evolution values honest signals. If every animal could fake an injury whenever it wanted, injuries would stop meaning anything. If every bird pretended its wing was broken, the signal would quickly lose its power. The same appears to be true for humans. Genuine emotional crying is surprisingly difficult to control, which means that for thousands of generations, tears may have become one of the most trustworthy signals another human could receive. Then scientists stumbled across another mystery, one that almost sounds impossible. Human tears may communicate information without us even realizing it. In one famous experiment, researchers collected emotional tears from women and asked men to smell them. The participants weren't told what they were smelling. Most couldn't detect any noticeable scent at all. But their bodies reacted anyway. Their testosterone levels dropped. Brain activity changed. Even the women they later looked at were rated as slightly less attractive. No one consciously knew they had been smelling tears. Yet their nervous systems responded. Exactly what this means is still debated, but it suggests something remarkable. Tears may carry messages our conscious minds never notice, and humans aren't the only ones paying attention. If you've ever cried in front of a dog, you may have noticed something unusual. Many dogs approach almost immediately. Some gently lick their owner's face. Others simply refuse to leave their side. Scientists are still careful about what they conclude. They don't claim dogs understand human emotions exactly as we do, but study after study suggests they respond differently when people appear distressed. After living beside humans for thousands of years, they've become remarkably good at reading our emotional signals, which raises an incredible possibility. One of humanity's oldest forms of communication may now be understood by another species. But perhaps the strangest mystery of all has nothing to do with sadness, because people don't only cry when life falls apart, they cry when life comes together. Parents cry while holding their newborn child. Athletes cry after winning Olympic gold. Students cry at graduation. Families cry when a missing loved one finally comes home. The same tears appear during our darkest moments and our happiest ones. At first, that makes no sense. Why would the brain use the exact same response for completely opposite emotions? The answer may be simpler than anyone expected. Perhaps tears aren't triggered by sadness at all. Perhaps they're triggered by intensity, moments so overwhelming that language simply isn't enough. Love, relief, grief, joy, all different emotions, the same biological response, which changes the story completely. Maybe crying was never designed for sadness. Maybe it evolved for life's most important moments. And if that's true, then tears didn't simply help individuals survive. They may have helped entire communities stay together. For thousands of years, that may have been humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage. History seems to agree. Long before scientists studied tears, people had already given them meaning. The ancient Egyptians mourned together. The ancient Greeks built entire plays designed to move audiences to tears. Across Asia, Africa, Europe, Australia, and the Americas, grief was rarely meant to be experienced alone. Different languages, different religions, different civilizations, the same human behavior. That isn't a coincidence, because tears don't just communicate emotion, they create connection. Anthropologists have argued for decades that humans didn't become the dominant species simply because we were intelligent. After all, Neanderthals had large brains, chimpanzees can solve complex problems, crows make tools. Intelligence alone was never enough. Humans succeeded because we became exceptionally good at cooperating. We shared food, we divided work, we protected children, we cared for the sick, we learned from the elderly. Most importantly, we recognized when another person needed help. Archaeologists have discovered something extraordinary. Ancient human skeletons dating back tens of thousands of years show severe injuries that had completely healed. Broken legs, crushed hips, missing arms, even individuals who had lost the ability to hunt. Alone, they should have died, yet they survived for years. Someone carried them, someone fed them, someone protected them. Those bones tell a remarkable story. Compassion isn't a modern invention. It's ancient, long before cities, long before kingdoms, long before writing. Human beings were already choosing to care for one another. Perhaps that decision changed everything, because evolution isn't just about surviving as an individual. Sometimes, it's about helping your group survive, and anything that strengthened cooperation became incredibly valuable. Language did, trust did, empathy did, maybe tears did too, not because they made us stronger, but because they reminded other people that strength was needed. The strange thing is, almost nothing about tears has changed. The tears you cry today come from the same tiny glands that produced tears in your ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago. Empires have risen and disappeared. Languages have been born and forgotten. Civilizations have transformed the planet. We've built skyscrapers, crossed oceans, walked on the moon, sent spacecraft beyond our solar system. Yet when life becomes too overwhelming, our bodies still respond with one of the oldest behaviors we've ever evolved. A few drops of salt water running down a human face. Perhaps that's why crying has never disappeared. Not because evolution made a mistake, but because it solved a problem no other adaptation could. A tear can ask for help without saying a word. It can rebuild trust without making an argument. It can express grief, love, relief, or gratitude. Even when language fails completely, for thousands of generations, that silent signal helped transform individuals into families, families into communities, and communities into civilizations. We often imagine evolution as a competition. The fastest survive, the strongest survive, the most ruthless survive. But human history tells a different story. The species that inherited the earth wasn't the strongest. It was the one that learned to understand another person's pain. And perhaps that's the real story of tears. Not a sign that humans are emotionally weak, but evidence that our greatest evolutionary advantage was never strength. It was our ability to make someone else care.